Hey everyone, I'm Liz Fairy and today I'm going to show you how to make basic clothes for your crochet dolls. In this tutorial, I'll show you how to finish making the princess dress we started last time. I'll show you how to finish the skirt, how to make the puffed sleeves, and how to make the overskirt in this part. If you missed the first part of this tutorial, click the link on the screen to find it so you can follow along. In the last video, I just finished joining the skirt in the round by single crocheting into the first stitch on the other side. Now I'll work the rest of the rows in a spiral, and I'm going to continue to increase by the next number for each row until the skirt reaches the length I want for the doll. So in the next row I'll increase every 6th stitch, then I'll continue to increase by the next number until the skirt is long enough. Increase the next row every 7th stitch, then every 8th stitch, then every 9th stitch, and so on. If you like, you could start to even out the circle shape in every other row. I talked about this technique in my doll skirt tutorial video if you want a more detailed explanation. You might notice that since I'm increasing the work 6 times per row, the circle is more of a hexagon shape. To even out the row, I'm going to offset the increases for every few rows. In the last row, I increased every 7th stitch. Now in this row, where I'm going to increase every 8th stitch, I'm going to place the first increase in between the first and last increases of the previous row, on the 4th stitch, for my first increase. Then I'll work the next increase every 8th stitch after the first increase, so that all the increases of this row will be in between the increases of the previous row. I'm going to do this every second row, so that the circle stays even. And I'm going to continue in that pattern until the skirt reaches the length I want. Alright, I finished increasing the skirt. I continued to increase until I was increasing every 34th stitch for the full-length skirt, but you can continue to increase for as long as you like, especially if you're making the skirt for a larger doll. I also changed colors to my darker shade of pink for the last few rows of the skirt to give the skirt a darker pink trim. To do that, I simply left the last stitch of the row open and finished the stitch with a loop of the new color. Then I worked the rest of the skirt in the darker pink. Once the skirt is finished, I'm going to end the work with a slip stitch trim. This is optional. If you like, you could just end the work with one slip stitch in the first stitch of the row. But I'm going to give this dress a trim of slip stitches at the bottom by slip stitching into each stitch of the row. Then I'll end the row with a slip stitch into the first stitch of the next row. Then cut off the yarn and sew in the end. Next I'm going to make the sleeves for the dress. You could use my other doll sleeves tutorials if you want the dress to have more basic straight sleeves, or if you want the sleeves to bell out. But if you want puffed sleeves, make them this way. I've already done the sleeves on one side, because both sleeves are made in the same basic way. If you like, you could start this part with a chain and sew the sleeve to the armhole of the dress later. If you're doing that, make a chain that's the same width as the armhole to begin your sleeve, then slip stitch to the first chain to work the sleeve in the round. Then chain one for the first stitch, and work the stitches of the sleeve on the foundation chain. For this dress though, I'm going to work my stitches directly onto the bodice of the dress at the armholes. You can see how I did this in more detail in my advanced doll sleeves video, but basically I'm going to place the stitches of the sleeves into the 6 stitches I skipped at the armhole, then into the side of the first single crochet I made at the side of the armhole, then into the 4 chains at the middle, at the bottom of the armhole, then into the side of the other single crochet I made at the other side of the armhole. So to begin my sleeve, I'm going to pull up a loop in the first of the stitches I skipped at the armhole, where I made the shoulders of the bodice. Then I'll chain 1 to count as the first stitch of the row. Now I'm going to increase the sleeve to give it that puffed shape. I'll increase each row of the sleeve 6 times, but if you like you could increase more or fewer times per row to give the sleeve more or less puff. You could even try adding a lot of increases, then folding in parts of the sleeve to give it a ruffled look. But I'm just going to increase 6 times per row. I'm just going to increase at the top half of the sleeve so that the puff is on top. But if you prefer, you could make the sleeve puff out evenly all the way around by just increasing 6 times evenly throughout the row. But I'm just going to place all my increases at the top of this row. So to increase the first stitch, I'm going to single crochet again into the same stitch, Then I'll single crochet twice into the rest of the stitches that I skipped at the armhole. Next, I'll single crochet into the side of the first single crochet I made before my 4 chains. As you can see, I've marked all of these stitches with my bobby pin. Then I'll single crochet into each of the 4 chains. Then single crochet into the side of the next single crochet. And now I have 18 stitches total in my sleeve. Now I'm going to continue to increase the sleeve 6 times per row at the top of the row for just one more row, but you can go on until the sleeve reaches the width you want. I had 24 stitches total in my sleeve when I finished my increases. Now I'm just going to single crochet for 2 rows to add some length to my sleeve. But again, go on for as many rows as you like to lengthen the puffed section of your sleeve. Now I'm done lengthening my sleeve. Next I need to decrease the sleeve to end the puff. I'll do this in the opposite way that I increased, by decreasing 6 times per row at the top of the sleeve for 2 rows. But again, decrease for as many rows as you like. Just go on until the width of the sleeve matches the width of the armhole of the bodice. If you want, you could add more rows of single crochet here if you want to add more length. I skipped this step for this sleeve because I don't want to make full sleeves, but I'll show you how to make full-length sleeves later in this video. Next, I'm going to even out the length of the top of the sleeve and the bottom of the sleeve. To do this, I'm going to add a row just to the top of the sleeves. So I'm going to single crochet into each stitch at the top of the row. Since I only have 12 stitches in this row, I'm going to single crochet 6 times. Then I'll slip stitch to the next stitch to end the row. If you made longer sleeves, you may need to add a few more rows, but for this short sleeve, I'm just adding one extra row at the top of the sleeve. But again, I'll show you how to do that later in the video. Next, I'm going to finish this sleeve with a slip stitch trim. So I'll slip stitch in the next stitch. And this is going to count as the new first stitch of the row, so I'll mark it with my bobby pin. Then I'll keep adding slip stitches in each stitch until I get to the end of the row. And then I'll slip stitch to the first stitch of this row to end the work, then cut off the yarn and sew in the end. To make the full-length sleeve, though, after my row of decrease, I'm going to add a few rows of single crochet to add some length to the sleeve. I'm not going to go on for the full length of the sleeve. I'll make it a couple of rows too short so that I can even out the cuff in the last couple rows of the sleeve by working in rows. So I'm just going to go on single crocheting for 10 more rows. Alright, I've done my 10 extra rows of single crochet to lengthen the sleeve. Now to even out the cuff, I'm going to work in rows at the top of the sleeve to add more length to just the top. This part is optional, so just like I did for the shorter sleeve, I'm going to single crochet into the top 6 stitches of the row. And then slip stitch in the next stitch. And if you like, you can mark this stitch that I just slip stitched into, because that's going to count as a stitch when we make the trim in just a minute. But before we add the trim, let's do a couple more rows of single crochet at the top only. So to add another row, I'm going to turn the work and I'm going to single crochet directly into the second stitch from the hook. And now this is going to count as the first stitch on this side, so I'll mark it with another bobby pin. Then single crochet until the last stitch of the row, where I'm going to slip stitch again. Again, mark that stitch that we just slip stitched into with a bobby pin, because it'll count as a stitch when we're making the trim. And then I'll turn the work back the other way and single crochet directly into the second stitch from the hook. And keep single crocheting until the last stitch of the row and slip stitch into that stitch. Then to make the trim more neat, I'm going to do a row of single crochets in each stitch, including each of the stitches that I marked, working in the round. Just like I did for the shorter sleeves, I'm going to mark the next stitch as the new first stitch of the row, and work single crochets all the way around until I get back to the first stitch. Then at the end of that row, I'll make a trim of slip stitches in each stitch. And when I get to the end of the row, I'm going to slip stitch to the first stitch to end the row, cut off my yarn, and sew in the end. Next, I'm going to make the pieces of cloth that drape over each side of the skirt. I'm using my darker pink yarn to make these. This part is optional. If the dress you're making doesn't have an overskirt, you can leave this part out. As you can see, I've already made the overskirt on one side because both are made in the same way. So you're going to need to make 2 of these. First, I'll create a slip knot and chain 2 for the first stitch. Then I'll single crochet 4 times into the slip knot. Then I'll chain 1 for the first stitch of the next row. Turn the work. And for the rest of the overskirt, I'm going to increase in the middle, in between the 2 stitches at either side. I'll increase each row 3 times per row, so for this row, since there's only 3 middle stitches, I'll increase every stitch. Then single crochet in the last stitch of the row. Then I'll do the same thing for the next row. So chain 1 for the first stitch, turn the work, and continue increasing the middle 3 times. So now there's 6 stitches in the middle, so I'll increase every second stitch this time. Then single crochet in the last stitch of the row. And for each row after, just keep increasing by the next number. In the next row, I'll increase every 3rd stitch in between the first and last stitch of the row. And then in the next row, I'll increase every 4th stitch in between, and so on. I'm going to continue to add rows until I'm increasing the middle every 6th stitch, but if you like, you can increase for fewer or more rows depending on the size you want the overskirt to be. Now I'm done increasing the overskirt. Next I'll add a slip stitch trim to the bottom. Then I'll chain one to end the work, cut off a long tail, and use the tail to sew each side of the overskirt to the top of the skirt. And now the dress is done. There's a ton of ways you could customize this design to make just about any dress. You could change the colors around for the bodice, sleeves, or skirt, add different styles of sleeves, or make different lengths and fullnesses of skirts. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a like and share it on social media. If you want to see more doll clothes tutorials, you can find a playlist at the end of this video, or check in the description below. If you want to see how I made the doll I used in this tutorial, you can find a link to the pattern in the description. Or if you want to support my work, consider donating to my Patreon page. You can get some pretty cool perks through Patreon, like seeing my videos before everyone else. Find more information about that at patreon.com/fairyrings. I decided to make a Princess Peach dress for my doll, but I'm pretty excited to try making other princess dresses using this technique. Let me know which princess dress you'd like to see me make in the comments section, and if you use this technique, I'd love to see your interpretation. Send me pictures at any of my social media pages, there'll be links in the description below. And if you want to keep seeing new videos like this in the future, subscribe to my channel and I'll see you all next time. Bye!